Thank you, Zoe. That was awesome. I've got the affirmation for today already. Good morning. Thank you all for coming out today. I noticed it was -8 this morning when I looked at my little thermometer, and it's a lot easier getting out and getting here when it's +40 than it is when it's -8. So thank you for coming out. We appreciate it. And I also want to thank those who didn't brave the temperature and came out anyway, or are watching on YouTube. Thank you for watching on YouTube as well. Joel Osteen is the pastor of a mega church. It's Lakewood in Houston, Texas. They have the old Astrodome. They fill that with 40,000 people every Sunday. And he told a story a couple of weeks ago that resonated with me, and I knew that I would have a use for that story soon, and that's this week. And there are just too many similarities to his experiences in life that it makes me wonder if he didn't just change a few details of his own experience. There was a young pastor. He was the son of a very successful pastor in a large church in Texas. He went to ministerial school. He graduated. After his graduation, he went off to a smaller church several hours away. He was there as the senior minister for 5 years, and then Dad asked him to come back to the larger church so that he could, I think, train under Dad and get to the place where he could take over as minister in this larger church. He came back and Dad gave him a key to the church, and he said, it's only one key. And Dad says, that's right. And he says, well, in a much smaller church, I had a whole bunch of keys to unlock everything. And Dad says, you only need one key here. And he says, well, what's the key to? He says, your office. So he only had one key, and that was to his office. And he thought that was strange, but he honored Dad and went along with it. But it really was a pain. He'd come in to do things, and he'd have to go look in the windows and tap on the window to have people come and let him in and things like that. And if he couldn't get anybody's attention, he'd have to call security and have security come and let him in. And then Dad got sick, and he wanted to pray for Dad. And his favorite place to pray was in a sanctuary. Well, he got there one night to go in and pray for Dad, and there wasn't anybody in there. Nobody in the parking lot at all. He walked all the way around the church, and he tried every door just to see in case maybe somebody had left the door unlocked. We know that had never happened here. But every door was locked. And he wasn't too sure what to do. He called security, and the head of security says, geez, I'm sorry, but we've had kind of an emergency. It'll take me at least 30 minutes to get there, so if you could hang on. And he thought, well, that's kind of a bummer. So he says, okay, I'll be here. So he, for whatever reason, took his key and put it in to the front door lock, and it slipped right in, and he turned it, and click, it opened, and he thought, oh, what luck. How can this is awesome. My key to my office also works for the front door. And then he went in and he tried the sanctuary, and it worked for the sanctuary. It worked for the choir room. It worked for the children's church. He realized that Dad had given him the master key to the entire church. But he had never used it because he thought it was only good for his office. And I think that we're a lot like that. We go through life with an amazing master key to life, but we don't ever try it because we think it's only good for this one little part. We continue the series today. This has been working on this series, Back to Basics, and I continue that today. we're going to look at this rather than from some of the other ways of looking at it. We've looked at some of the basic tenets of our philosophy. Today we're going to look at how we apply it. How do we use these things in what we do? The title of my talk today is The Successful Life. And so often we discount ourselves. We count ourselves out before we ever start. I don't have the personality for that. I've got this great idea for starting a business, but if you're going to start a business, you've got to be effervescent and outgoing and egregious. And I'm this quiet introvert. I just don't have the personality to do it. Or another good one that I hear is, I just don't have the education for it. It says right on the thing that you have to have at least a master's degree, a doctorate is preferred. I don't even have a bachelor's. So I don't have the education for it. Yeah, lack of education sure slowed down Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, didn't it? Things seem to work out for them pretty good. And the Hebrew scriptures are filled with examples of people who felt that they weren't good enough. One that comes to mind is Moses, and he's standing before the burning bush, and God speaks to him, and he's looking around. Who are you talking to? And God says, who else is standing before the burning bush? Moses, it's you boob, I'm talking to you. And Moses says, but I can't do that. I'm not qualified. Yeah, you're qualified. You can do this. Just do it. And Moses keeps putting up arguments. I can't do this. I can't do this. And finally said, I just, it's a stutter. Finally, God says, okay, I'll give you a press secretary, but you got to go and do this. So finally, Moses did it. And of course, Moses became one of the greatest leaders, the greatest prophets in Hebrew history. But another good example is David. Here's the mighty Philistine, Goliath, is going to take on the entire Hebrew nation or any man in it. And nobody wants to fight Goliath except this little shepherd boy. He couldn't do anything. Oh, what am I going to do against this giant Goliath? But I'll give it a try. And we all know he had the slingshot and he was able to fell the mighty Goliath. Another one I hear is, I just don't have the talent. I'd like to do this, but I just don't have the talent. Wow, you don't know what talent you have. No, maybe you don't have the talent to be a basketball player, but maybe you have the most beautiful voice and you can become an entertainer. I don't have the background. Wow, that's a good one. I've heard that several times. One of the students that I was in school with delayed going into ministerial school for over a decade because of her background. She didn't think that she could become a minister because she had a felony drug conviction and had spent time in jail. And they'd never hire me as a minister with that. Today she runs one of the most effective jail programs, prisoner programs in the entire movement. Who better to deal with prisoners than a former prisoner? Background often doesn't make a difference. Well, what about I don't have the intelligence? That's a good one. Who are you to judge what your intelligence level is? In lieu of the joke, I've been doing these last few weeks a feel-good story. And so in lieu of the joke, the feel-good story for this week is a young lady by the name of Alyssa Nacken. I think that's how it's pronounced. But earlier this week, Alyssa was named the very first female full-time coach in Major League Baseball. Now, what if she would have said, I'm the wrong gender? I can't do that. I'm the wrong gender. She was a star softball player at her college in college, and she signed on with the Giants as an intern in 2014. And in the next 5 years, she worked her way up from intern to being named a full-time assistant coach with the Giants. Pretty remarkable. She didn't let having the wrong gender slow her down. Think of it this way. This infinite presence, this infinite intelligence that has created the entire cosmos and has put it together in a clockwork synchronicity, this amazing universe, the cosmos in which we live, and the perfection that everything works in the circulation and how it all comes together. This thing is just amazing and it's perfect and it did everything perfect except you. You're the one mistake that the divine creative force of the universe made? I don't think so. You have already been given all of the tools, all of the things that you need to be a success in this life here and now. You already have it within you. Just like that pastor with the master key. You've got the master key, you just have to use it. But we don't always get what we expect. Sometimes things come at us that we don't expect at all. There was a story of a burglar, and he was in this house robbing a house, and all of a sudden behind him he heard a voice. And the voice said, "Jesus is watching you." And he thought, whoa. And he looked around and he didn't see anybody, so he got out his burglar flashlight and he shined it around. And there, sitting on a post, was a parrot. And he said, "Who are you?" And the parrot says, "My name is Moses." What? A parrot named Moses? What kind of a family would keep a parrot named Moses? And the parrot says, the same kind of family that would keep a 142-pound Rottweiler that's vicious named Jesus. Jesus is watching you. So how do we use that key? How, do we go around trying the key in everything that we do throughout our whole life? How do we use that key? In our philosophy, we teach that there are certain spiritual principles. And those spiritual principles are laws. These things are just as reliable, just as accountable as the law of gravity. Spiritual principles that guide us. And perhaps the one that most people know the most about is the law of attraction. And the law of attraction states simply that like attracts like. It was the subject of a movie known as The Secret, and a lot of people really got into The Secret. And sometimes I wonder if maybe The Secret didn't do our movement more harm than good. It certainly exposed a lot of people to some of our spiritual principles, but some people interpreted this as a get-rich-quick kind of a philosophy, and that you don't have to work to get it, that the universe is going to give you whatever you want. And that isn't our philosophy at all. Our philosophy is that you will attract unto you that which you put out. And it works not only in monetary matters, it not only works in, in everyday things. If you're a jerk, you're going to attract people that aren't nice to you. If you can approach the world with love in your heart, you're going to attract love back to yourself. Another one is the law of correspondence, and that is simply states that there is a corresponding mental cause behind all physical things. Somebody had the idea to make this see-through lectern so that you could stay in contact with the speaker. There is a correspondence between our thoughts and our feelings and our beliefs and what we project into the world in terms of the physical world that we live in. The law of circulation. Everything circulates within the universe. Everything circulates. The planets go around the sun goes around the Milky Way goes around in a host of galaxies. Everything is circular. What goes out comes back. Even our very breath, we inhale and we take in oxygen, and we exhale and we release carbon dioxide. Everything is in circulation. Plants are utilizing the carbon dioxide and they release oxygen back. The rain, evaporates over the ocean, it comes over the land, it condenses as rain, forms the rivers and goes back to the ocean. The law of circulation. The law of cause and effect. This is just a spiritual law that matches the physical law. We know that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Well, this is the same thing from a spiritual standpoint, that there is a cause, and for every cause there is an effect. The last that I listed, there are more than this. I'd be here all day if I listed them all, but I list the law of mind. And the law of mind I talked about last week, and that is the divine creative process. And that is that the seeds that we plant in thought are what we reap. If we plant thoughts of positivity, we can harvest positive things in our lives. If we plant tomato seeds, we can expect to get tomatoes and not potatoes. The law of mind, the divine creative process. Well, it's good that we know what these spiritual principles are. It's good to study those and know about that. How do we use that? And that's what this philosophy is all about, is how do we act? How do we do? What do we do to engage these unerring principles? And that's our spiritual practices. And we've got a host of spiritual practices. I'm not going to talk about all of them today, but the big one is prayer. And Kaleem talked about how we as practitioners and at our center, we believe in the power of prayer. And prayer is one of the things that engages so many of those spiritual principles. It engages the law of attraction. When we pray, we're creating a vibration that matches the desire, the vibration of the thing that we want. We create, the law of correspondence. When we pray, we think about the mental equivalent or the mold of that which we desire. Many of the spiritual principles are involved in affirmative prayer. Meditation is another spiritual practice. Once again, it helps us to step into that vibrational arena in which we can attract that is what we want. Tithing, that doesn't mean you have to give 10% of your income. By tithing, what I'm talking about is contributing in some way or another and then receiving that back through the law of circulation. It can be monetary, it can be 10%, but it doesn't have to be. Nobody's going to come and arrest you. But it can be service, it can be a ton of different things. Another one of our spiritual practices is sacred service. You can participate in the law of circulation simply by spending time with our youth, by volunteering in different ways, and there's plenty to do around here, let me tell you. So we invite you to step into that. Visioning, use of affirmations. Talked about this last week as well. When we do the collection at the end of the service, we have 4 baskets. It's not so that we can collect 4 times as much. The idea is that we have 2 baskets to collect, and we also have 2 baskets to give back out. And we give affirmations every week. And affirmations are a wonderful way to reframe your thinking and reframe your life. Journaling is another great way where you can shift your thinking, where you can shift that vibrational pool that you're swimming in. And of course, sacred services. The one thing that I want everybody to take away today, and this is a quote from Ernest Holmes, and it seems to catch it all to me. Well, that sacred reading was good though, Kaleem. Thank you, that was awesome. Ernest Holmes wrote, "Our part is to be ready and willing to be guided into truth and liberty. All doubt and fear must go. In their place must come faith and confidence, for we shall be led by the Spirit into all good. And so it's with that awareness of the presence of that infinite Spirit that I invite my colleagues, the practitioners, to join me in recognizing that divine presence in our congregation, in our city, in our state, our country, that divine presence within this entire world, that divine presence within the entire cosmos. And that the nature of that divine presence is one of good. The world has learned all that it needs to from the suffering of man. We don't need to suffer anymore. We have a power for good, and it is with us at every moment. And yes, we face problems in life. We face trials and tribulations. We face the thing that life is made of. But we are given the ability to deal with it because we have the master key. We have the master key to life. So regardless of the conditions that we face in our life, health challenges, as we grow older, we face more and more health challenges. But that doesn't erase the fact that within each and every one of us is a blueprint of perfect health. And we have the ability to claim that perfect health. We have the ability to claim that which is for our highest good at every moment. For those of us that are experiencing lack and limitation and more months than there is paycheck, we simply know that we live in an abundant universe. We don't bury our head in the sand and say that we're rich when we're really poor, but what we do is we say what we're rich in. We may be rich in love. We may be rich in 100 different ways, in beauty and talent. We may not have all the money in the world, but we have things that are far more valuable. And for those of us who are feeling separation from God, separation from one another, we just simply know that as a beloved child of God, our nature is to love. And as we give love out into the universe, it is returned to us. And so we drop all hatred, we drop all animosity, and we just sit and turn to love. And that love must be reflected back to us in every situation, whether it be at work, whether it be a romantic relationship, whether it be family relationship. It makes no difference because it's all love. It's all the very love of God. And so now we just give thanks. We give thanks for our awareness, the spiritual practices. We give thanks for our awareness of principles. We give thanks for this center where we're given the opportunity to learn about these and to try them out, to practice in classes and in a host of different ways. We give thanks, and now we can step into our week with confidence, knowing that that infinite presence is with us always. So we let it go, we let it be, and so it is.